The dog doesn't bark. He locks his legs and leans backward, claws scraping against the damp concrete, as if the darkness ahead is pulling him in, and he's fighting it with everything he has. The tunnel yawns open in front of them, a jagged mouth carved into the hillside, swallowing the last stretch of twilight. Daniel Hayes tightens his grip on the leash. Shadow heel. His voice is steady, controlled, the way it's always been. But the dog doesn't move. Not forward. Not this time. A low growl hums from deep in Shadow's chest. Not aggressive, not defensive. Something else. Something closer to warning. Daniel feels it before he understands it. The air here is wrong. Still. Too still. No wind. No insects. Just the faint metallic scent lingering like old pennies soaked in rain. He takes one step closer to the tunnel entrance. Shadow resists harder, muscles taut, body angled away as if bracing against an invisible force. The leash pulls tight. For a second, neither of them moves. Then Daniel exhales slowly. It's just a hole in the ground. He mutters, more to himself than the dog. But even as he says it, something doesn't sit right. Because Shadow has walked through gunfire, through explosions, through buildings that were already falling apart before they entered. And he never hesitated. Not once. Until now. A faint sound drips from somewhere deep inside the tunnel. Not water. Not exactly. It's irregular. Hollow. Like something tapping, then stopping, then tapping again. Daniel tilts his head slightly. Listens. It stops the moment he focuses on it. Silence floods back in. Too clean. Too empty. He glances down at Shadow. The dog's ears are pinned back, eyes locked on the darkness, pupils wide, reflecting nothing. Not fear. Not quite. Recognition. That's what unsettles him. You've been here before, haven't you? He murmurs. Shadow doesn't look at him. Doesn't break focus. The leash trembles faintly in Daniel's hand, not from his own movement, but from the dog's restrained tension vibrating through it. Daniel steps closer again. This time, Shadow doesn't pull back. He freezes. Completely still. Like crossing an invisible line would mean something irreversible. The temperature drops. It's subtle at first, then unmistakable. Cooler than the surrounding air, like stepping near an open freezer. Daniel feels it on his skin, creeping under his sleeves. He glances at the ground. The dirt just inside the tunnel is darker. Damp, but there hasn't been rain in days. He crouches slightly, running his fingers near the edge without fully touching it. The smell sharpens. Iron. Old. Lingering. Not fresh. But not gone either. Behind him, the world feels distant. The faint hum of the road half a mile back. The wind brushing through dry grass. All of it seems muted here, like the tunnel is swallowing sound before it reaches him. Another step. Shadow lets out a sharp, sudden whine. Not loud, but desperate. Daniel stops immediately. His jaw tightens. Easy, he says, softer now. I'm right here. But the words feel thin, because something is pressing against the edges of his memory. Something he hasn't touched in a long time. The shape of this place. The angle of the entrance. The way the ground slopes just slightly downward after the first 10 feet. He's seen this before. He knows he has. A flicker. A flash. A voiceover calms, distorted. Static cutting through a sentence that never finished. Daniel blinks, the memory slipping away before it fully forms. He straightens slowly. His eyes scan the darkness again, more carefully this time. The tunnel isn't just dark. It's dense. Like the black inside has weight. Like it's holding something in, or keeping something from getting out. The tapping sound comes again. Clearer this time. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks. Then nothing. Daniel's breath catches. Not because it's loud, but because it's patterned. Deliberate. He glances down at Shadow. The dog's body is trembling now. Not from fear, but from restraint. Like every instinct in him is screaming to leave, and he's staying anyway. For Daniel, that's when it hits him. Not the sound. Not the cold. The feeling. This isn't a place Shadow is afraid of. It's a place he remembers. And whatever is inside, remembers them too. Daniel does not move for a long second after the sound fades. The pattern lingers in his mind longer than the echo itself. 3 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks. Not random. Never random. He exhales slowly, forcing his shoulders to relax, but his grip on the leash tightens just enough for Shadow to feel it. The dog shifts his weight, paws scraping lightly against the ground, but he still does not step forward. Daniel glances down, then back into the tunnel. Stay, he says quietly. It is not a command. It is a promise. Then he steps past the invisible line. The temperature drops again, sharper now, like stepping into shade that does not belong to the sun. The light behind him stretches forward but stops short, swallowed by the dark after a few yards. Daniel reaches into his jacket and pulls out a small flashlight, clicking it on. The beam cuts through the black in a narrow tunnel of pale white, revealing rough stone walls, damp patches glistening faintly, and a floor marked by uneven grooves. He takes another step, then another. Each footfall sounds louder than it should, echoing back in soft, delayed whispers. Behind him, shadow lets out a low whine that fades quickly, as if the tunnel itself refuses to carry it further. Daniel pauses and turns his head slightly, listening again. Silence. Then something new. A faint scuffing sound, not ahead, not behind, but somewhere along the wall to his right. He angles the flashlight beam toward it. At first, there is nothing, just stone. Then the light catches something that should not be there. A mark. Not natural. Not erosion. Daniel steps closer, lowering the beam. His breath slows. It is a set of scratches, shallow but deliberate, carved into the rock about chest height. 5 vertical lines. Then a space. Then 5 more. He stares at them, something tightening in his chest. Counting marks. Time marks. Someone had been here long enough to keep track. The air feels heavier suddenly. He runs his fingers near the surface, but does not touch it. The grooves are too clean, too intentional. A chill moves through him that has nothing to do with temperature. Behind him, shadow barks once. Sharp. Sudden. The sound echoes just enough to bounce off the walls and return distorted. Daniel flinches slightly, then steadies himself. I see it, he murmurs, though he is not sure if he is speaking to the dog or to himself. He shifts the light further down the wall. More marks. Not as many. Less organized. Like whoever made them had lost track. Or stopped caring. Then the beam catches something else. Lower this time. Near the ground. A small metallic glint, half buried in dirt pressed against the edge of the wall. Daniel crouches slowly, the beam steady in his hand. His pulse picks up without permission. He brushes the dirt aside carefully. The object reveals itself inch by inch. A chain. Dull. Tarnished. Attached to something flat. He freezes for a fraction of a second before lifting it. A dog tag. The metal is cold, even through his glove. He turns it slightly, angling the light. The surface is scratched, worn, but still readable. The name is faint at first. Then it sharpens. His breath stops halfway in, because he recognizes it before he finishes reading it. Not just the name. The formatting. The spacing. The way the edges are worn down in a very specific pattern. This is not just any tag. It is from his unit. A sound breaks the moment. Not tapping this time. Closer. Softer. Like something shifting just out of sight deeper in the tunnel. Daniel's head lifts slowly, eyes narrowing into the dark beyond the reach of his flashlight. The beam suddenly feels too small. Too weak. He grips the dog tag tighter, the cold pressing into his palm. Behind him, shadow begins to pace just outside the entrance, nails clicking against stone, restless now, more urgent. Daniel swallows once, his throat dry. Then he looks back down at the tag in his hand. The name stares back at him. Familiar. Impossible. Because as far as he remembers, that man was never reported missing. And that is when the realization lands, quiet but heavy. This place was not just abandoned. It was erased. Daniel does not realize how hard he is gripping the dog tag until the edges press into his palm. The name does not change no matter how many times he looks at it. It stays there. Quiet. Certain. And completely wrong. His mind races, trying to pull together fragments that refuse to line up. Reports filed. Names accounted for. No one left behind. That was the line. That was always the line. But this tag is here. In the dirt. In a place that was supposed to be cleared, sealed, forgotten. A cold draft slips past him, brushing against the back of his neck like something moving in the opposite direction. Out. Not in. Daniel turns sharply, flashlight beam cutting back toward the entrance. For a second, all he sees is the pale rectangle of fading daylight and shadow pacing just beyond it, body tight, head low, eyes locked on him. Then the light flickers. Not the flashlight. The space itself. Like the air shifted. Just for a second. He blinks, and it is gone. His breathing changes. Slower. Controlled. but deeper now. He knows this feeling. The edge of something breaking through. Not fear. Recognition trying to surface. The sound comes again. Closer this time. Not tapping. Not exactly. More like something dragging lightly across stone, then stopping, then dragging again. Daniel turns back toward the deeper part of the tunnel. The beam feels smaller now, swallowed faster, leaving the edges of his vision exposed. He takes a step forward. The ground slopes slightly downward, just as his memory hinted. Another step, then another. The air grows thicker, harder to breathe, as if the tunnel is holding on to it. Behind him, Shadow barks again. Louder this time. Urgent. The sound cuts through Daniel's chest more than his ears. He stops, looks back. The dog is no longer pacing. He is standing rigid, front paws planted, leaning forward, but not crossing the threshold. Waiting, watching, as if something is about to happen and he cannot stop it. Daniel raises a hand slightly, not to command, but to steady himself. I am okay, he says, though the words feel uncertain the moment they leave his mouth. He looks down at the dog tag again. The letters blur for a second as his mind pulls harder at the past. A voice. Faint. Over radio static. Someone calling out coordinates that never made it into the final report. A decision made in seconds. A call to move on. He shakes his head sharply, trying to focus. The present pulls him back. The tunnel presses in closer. The dragging sound stops. Silence follows. Then a new sound replaces it. A faint, irregular. Dripping. Not water. Too thick. Too spaced out. Daniel's pulse quickens. His instincts begin to shift, not toward retreat, but toward urgency. Something about this place is not just wrong. It is unfinished. And that thought lands harder than anything else. Unfinished means time matters. Unfinished means something was interrupted. He checks his watch without thinking. The seconds tick normally. Steady. Unchanged. But it does not feel that way. The deeper he stands in the tunnel, the more it feels like time is folding in on itself, like the distance behind him is stretching. He glances back again. The entrance looks farther away than it should. Not by much. Just enough to notice. His jaw tightens. That is not possible, he whispers under his breath. But the thought does not comfort him. Because he already knows something here does not follow what is supposed to be possible. The dog tag in his hand suddenly feels heavier. Not physically. Emotionally. Like it is pulling him forward instead of grounding him. He takes another step. Then another. The beam catches something ahead. A shape. Low against the ground. Still. He slows. Every movement deliberate now. The light inches closer, revealing edges. Fabric. Worn. Partially covered in dust. His breath catches again, sharper this time. Not from shock. From certainty forming too quickly. He kneels slowly, reaching out just enough to brush the surface. It is not recent. Not fresh. But it has not been completely lost either. Preserved by the stillness of this place. He does not need to see more to understand what it means. His chest tightens, the memory finally breaking through in fragments that refuse to stay buried. A mission cut short. A call made too fast. A voice that did not stop calling. Behind him, Shadow lets out a long, low sound that is not quite a bark and not quite a whine. Something deeper. Something that carries weight. Daniel closes his eyes for a brief second, then opens them again, staring into the darkness ahead. Because now the question is no longer what is inside this tunnel. The question is far worse. If this was left behind, what else did they leave here that never stopped waiting? Daniel stays, crouched for a moment longer than he should, his hand still hovering over the worn fabric on the ground, as if touching it again would confirm something he is not ready to accept. The tunnel feels tighter now, not physically, but in a way that presses against his thoughts, narrowing them, forcing him into a choice he has been avoiding since the first step inside. He inhales slowly, then pushes himself upright. The dog tag is still in his grip. The weight of it has changed. It is no longer just evidence. It is a question, one he cannot ignore. Behind him, Shadow's restless movement grows sharper, claws clicking faster against stone, the rhythm uneven, urgent. Daniel turns his head just enough to catch a glimpse of the entrance again. It looks smaller, not by much, but enough to make distance feel uncertain. Enough to make staying feel like a decision, not an accident. He swallows once. His instincts begin to split in two directions. One pulling him back toward the light, toward air that makes sense, toward a world where reports close and missions end. The other pulling him forward, deeper into the dark, towards something unresolved that has been waiting longer than he has been willing to admit. He exhales through his nose, steadying himself. "We cleared this," he says quietly, the words sounding rehearsed, like something he has repeated enough times to believe. "We did it right." The silence that follows does not agree. A faint sound answers instead. Not from behind. Not from the entrance. From ahead. Softer now. Slower. Like something pacing out of sync with him. Daniel's grip tightens again around the tag. His mind flashes back, faster this time, sharper. A corridor like this. Voices overlapping. A call to move out. Someone saying they needed more time. Someone else saying they did not have it. The memory fractures before it completes. He shakes his head again, harder. "Focus," he mutters. Then he takes another step forward. The ground dips slightly more, forcing his balance to adjust. The beam of his flashlight sweeps across the wall again, catching new details he missed before. More markings. Not just scratches now. Faint symbols. Arrows. Someone had tried to leave direction or warning. He follows one with the light, tracing it toward a darker section of the wall where the stone changes texture. Rougher. Broken. Not natural. He steps closer, heart beginning to beat faster, not from fear, but from the weight of what he might find. Then the beam lands on it. A second tag. Not on the ground this time. Wedged into a crack in the wall, as if placed there deliberately. Higher. Eye level. Daniel freezes. For a moment, he does not reach for it. Because something about it feels intentional. Like it was meant to be seen. Meant to be found by someone who came back. His breath slows again, controlled, measured, but heavier now. He lifts his hand and pulls the tag free. The metal scrapes softly against the rock as it comes loose. He brings it into the light. The name is different. Another from his unit. Another that was never listed as missing. The air shifts again. Subtle, but undeniable. And then it happens. The sound returns, closer than before. Not behind him. Not deep ahead. Right beside him. Daniel's head snaps to the side. Flashlight beam cutting across empty space. Nothing there. But the sound does not stop immediately this time. It lingers just long enough to feel deliberate. Just long enough to feel aware. His chest tightens. Not from fear. From realization. This is not just memory surfacing. This place is responding. A rehook hits him harder than anything before. Because suddenly the question changes again. Not what happened here. Not who was left behind. But something far more immediate. If these were placed here to be found, then who were they waiting for to come back? Behind him, Shadow lets out a sharp bark, louder than any before, cutting through the tunnel with a clarity that does not belong in this space. Daniel turns instinctively toward the entrance again. The distance has stretched further. It should not, but it has. His breathing quickens now, tension rising, not from panic, but from urgency. Because the longer he stands here, the more it feels like the choice is being made for him. Stay and face what was buried. Or leave and confirm that it stays buried forever. His jaw tightens, eyes flicking between the darkness ahead and the shrinking light behind. Then he looks down at the two tags in his hand. And for the first time since stepping inside, his voice is not steady when he speaks. "I cannot walk away again." Daniel steps forward before his doubt can catch up with him. The decision already made somewhere deeper than thought. Somewhere closer to instinct or guilt. He does not know which anymore. But the moment his boot lands, the tunnel seems to accept it. As if crossing that point changes something that cannot be undone, and the air shifts again, heavier now, pressing against his chest with a slow, deliberate weight. His flashlight flickers once, not from failure, but like something brushed past the beam, just out of sight, and he freezes for half a second, listening, not for sound, but for intention, because that is what it feels like now. Not random noise, not echoes, but something deliberate, something aware. And then the memory does not come in fragments this time. It hits all at once, sharp and complete. The same tunnel, the same slope under his boots, the same smell in the air, and voices, real voices, not distorted, not broken. A man calling from deeper inside, not panicked, but urgent, asking for time. Asking for a few more minutes, and Daniel remembers the decision, not as confusion, not as chaos, but as clarity, cold and precise. They were ordered to pull back. Risk assessment, unstable structure, unknown variables, and Daniel had agreed. He had repeated the order, confirmed it, turned away, and Shadow, younger then, stronger, had not moved, had planted himself just like now, refusing to leave, and Daniel had forced him, pulled him back, overridden instinct with command, and the memory tightens around his chest like a fist, because the voice had not stopped when they left. It had followed them, not physically, but in the silence that came after, and he had buried it, filed it away under completion, under necessary decision, under protocol. But standing here now, the lie collapses quietly, because this was never cleared, never finished, just abandoned in a way that could be written differently on paper, and his breath becomes uneven, not from fear, but from recognition of something he cannot undo, and the tunnel responds again, the sound shifting, closer now, clearer, not dragging, not tapping, but something like breath, faint and irregular, just beyond the reach of his light. And he steps again without thinking, drawn forward not by curiosity, but by the weight of what he already knows. The beam catches more of the wall ahead, and this time it reveals something undeniable. Not just scratches, not just marks, but words, carved shallow and uneven, as if made with effort that ran out before the message did. Daniel moves closer. The light's steady now despite the tension in his hand, and he reads them slowly, because part of him does not want to understand too quickly. The letters are rough, spaced unevenly, but clear enough. Weighted, the word sits there alone, stark and heavy, and beneath it, another line, smaller, less steady. You heard me. Daniel's breath stops again, not because of the words themselves, but because of what they confirm. This was not confusion, not miscommunication, not an error in signal. The call had been heard, acknowledged, and still left behind. And for the first time, the tunnel does not feel like a place. It feels like a memory that refused to stay buried. And behind him, Shadow lets out a low, continuous sound, not a bark, not a warning, but something that sounds almost like grief, stretched thin across time. And Daniel closes his eyes for a brief second, the image of that moment from years ago, aligning perfectly with the present, the same refusal, the same tension, the same choice. Except this time there is no command to fall back, no team behind him, no protocol to hide behind. Only the weight of 2 dog tags in his hand and the words carved into stone that refuse to be ignored. And yet, something is still missing. Something does not fully align, because the message stops there, incomplete. No name, no final mark, no indication of what happened after those words were carved, and the sound ahead continues, soft, persistent, like something that never finished what it started. And Daniel opens his eyes again, staring into the darkness where the light does not reach, his voice barely above a whisper, not asking for permission, not giving orders, but asking something far more dangerous, something he does not know if he wants answered. How long did you wait? The question hangs in the air longer than it should, as if the tunnel itself is deciding whether to answer. And for a moment there is nothing, no sound, no movement, just the weight of those carved words pressing against Daniel's chest. And then the flashlight flickers again, sharper this time, not dimming but bending. The beam distorting as it reaches deeper, and something shifts at the edge of it. Not a shape, not fully, but enough to pull Daniel one step closer without thinking, his breath slowing, his grip tightening around the 2 dog tags until the metal edges press into his skin, and the sound returns. But it is different now, clearer, closer, no longer scattered or distant. It is a voice, faint but undeniable, not carried through air, but through memory, through something deeper, and it says his name. Not loud, not urgent, but steady, like it has been waiting to be heard again. Hayes. And Daniel freezes completely, because that voice does not belong to the dark. It belongs to a man he knew, a man he trusted, a man who stood 10 feet behind him the last time they were here. And the realization hits not as shock, but as certainty unfolding, slow and heavy. Because the second tag in his hand suddenly makes sense in a way it did not before, he lifts it slightly, bringing it closer to the light. And the name sharpens fully now, no longer blurred by doubt, no longer softened by time. It reads clearly, Sergeant Michael Rourke, and Daniel's breath catches, because Rourke was not just another name on a list. He was the one who called out from the tunnel that day, the one who asked for more time, the one Daniel told they could not wait for. And the memory aligns perfectly now, No gaps, no distortion. Rourke had been sent ahead to check the stability, had gone deeper than planned, had reported back that there was something unusual, something worth holding position for. And Daniel had made the call, had repeated the order from command, had told him to fall back, and when Rourke did not respond fast enough, Daniel assumed the signal had failed, assumed the man had already moved, and he had turned away, pulling Shadow with him despite the dog's resistance, despite the way Shadow had dug his claws into the ground just like now. And the voice comes again, clearer this time, not from ahead, not from behind, but from everywhere at once, overlapping the present with the past. You said you heard me. And Daniel's chest tightens so sharply it feels like the air itself has thickened. Because that is the truth he buried. Not that he did not hear, but that he chose not to listen. And the tunnel responds again, the carved words on the wall seeming to deepen in the light. Waited, you heard me, and beneath them, something new becomes visible, something he missed before, another line, fainter, almost erased by time, but still there. I did not leave, and Daniel steps back instinctively, not from fear, but from the force of what that means, because the report said Rourke made it out, said all personnel were accounted for, said the mission closed clean, and yet the evidence in his hand, in the walls, in the air itself says otherwise, and the twist settles fully, heavy and undeniable. This was not an accident, not a lost signal, not a miscount. It was a decision that was rewritten after the fact, a truth buried not in the tunnel, but in the record, and Daniel's voice breaks for the first time. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet fracture that carries more weight than anything else. You were still here, and the silence that follows is not empty. It is full of everything that was never acknowledged, everything that was covered, everything that remained. And then the light shifts again, and for a fraction of a second, Daniel sees it. Not clearly, not fully, but enough, a figure deeper in the tunnel, standing just beyond the reach of the beam. Still, waiting, not moving forward, not retreating, exactly where it has always been. And the question that rises now is no longer about what happened, but something far more immediate, far more impossible to ignore. If Rourke never left, then who was it that walked out with them that day? Daniel does not step forward. Again, not yet. His body locks in place as the realization settles deeper than thought, deeper than memory, somewhere closer to the part of him that had always known something was wrong, but chose silence anyway. The beam of his flashlight trembles slightly now, not from fear, but from the weight of recognition that refuses to stay contained. The figure in the distance does not move. It does not need to. Its presence alone reshapes everything Daniel thought he understood. Behind him, Shadow lets out a low, drawn-out sound that breaks into the silence like something cracking under pressure. Daniel turns halfway, just enough to see him. The dog is no longer pacing, no longer resisting in fragments. He is fully engaged now, body leaning forward, muscles tight, eyes locked past Daniel into the darkness beyond, as if he has been waiting for this exact moment, not for the tunnel, not for the sound, but for Daniel to finally understand. Daniel swallows hard. His voice comes out rough, uneven. You knew, he says quietly, not accusing, not questioning, but acknowledging. Shadow's ears shift slightly, but he does not break his stare. He does not need to answer. He never did. That is what makes it harder. Daniel looks back toward the figure again, his breathing slower now, but heavier, each inhale carrying something unresolved. The memory rewrites itself in real time. Not the events. Those remain the same. But the meaning changes. Every hesitation Shadow showed that day. Every refusal to move. Every second Daniel pulled him away from this place. It was never fear. It was resistance. Not to the tunnel. To the decision. The sound returns again, but this time it is clearer, closer, almost aligned with Daniel's own breathing. Not words now. Just presence. Waiting. Patient in a way that feels impossible after everything that has passed. Daniel takes a step forward before he can stop himself. The ground shifts slightly under his boot, loose gravel sliding a fraction of an inch, echoing louder than it should. The figure does not move. The distance between them feels fixed, like no matter how far he walks, it will remain just beyond reach. That realization hits differently. This is not about closing distance. This is about crossing something internal. Daniel stops again. His hand tightens around the tags, the metal pressing harder now, grounding him in a way nothing else can. "I thought you made it out," he says, voice low, strained. The words sound empty the moment they leave him, because he already knows the truth. He did not think. He assumed. And then he accepted the version that followed because it was easier to carry. Behind him, Shadow takes a step forward. Just one. It is the first time he has crossed even slightly past the entrance. Daniel hears it immediately, the subtle shift of weight, the faint scrape of claws against stone. He turns again, eyes widening just enough to register it. Shadow stands just inside the threshold now. Not fully in, not fully out. Watching Daniel, but also watching the space ahead, as if holding both realities at once. Daniel's chest tightens. "You would not leave it," he murmurs, understanding settling deeper. Not then. Not now. The bond between them sharpens in that moment, not as companionship, but as something heavier. Shared memory. Shared burden. One that only one of them tried to forget. The tunnel seems to react again, the air shifting, the sound deepening slightly, like something drawing closer to the surface of awareness. Daniel turns back toward the figure. It is still there, still waiting, not advancing, not retreating, exactly where it has always been. And that is what breaks something inside him. Not fear, not shock, the stillness, the fact that it never moved on. "I left you," Daniel says quietly, the words no longer avoidable, no longer deflectable. The moment he says it, the tunnel changes again. Subtle, but undeniable. The air loosens slightly, as if something long held tight has shifted. Shadow steps one pace further in, then stops, waiting again, not leading, not pulling, just there, with him. Daniel exhales slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing just enough to allow movement without force. He looks down at the dog for a brief second. Their eyes meet. There is no judgment there, no accusation, only presence, only the quiet certainty that the next step matters more than anything that came before. Daniel nods once, not to Shadow, to himself. Then he turns back toward the darkness, because now the choice is no longer between leaving or staying. It is between repeating the past or finally answering what never stopped calling. Daniel does not rush this time. The urgency that drove him forward moments ago shifts into something steadier, something more deliberate, like each step now carries weight beyond distance, beyond the tunnel itself. He exhales slowly and takes one step forward, then another. The beam of his flashlight steadies, no longer shaking, cutting a clearer path through the darkness. Behind him, Shadow follows. Not close, not far, just enough to be there when it matters. The space between them is no longer tension. It is alignment. The figure ahead does not move. It never has. But something about it feels different now. Less distant, less unreachable. Daniel stops a few feet short of where the light begins to fade into shadow again. His chest rises and falls slowly, controlled, but heavy with everything that led him here. The dog tags press against his palm, grounding him, reminding him. He lowers the flashlight slightly, not to hide the light, but to soften it, as if too much clarity might break something fragile in this moment. "I should have stayed," he says quietly. The words are not dramatic. They do not echo. They settle into the space like something that belongs here. The air shifts again, subtle but undeniable, like a pressure easing just enough to be noticed. The faint presence ahead flickers, not disappearing, not advancing, but changing in a way Daniel cannot fully explain. Not less real, just less distant. Behind him, Shadow steps forward again, this time fully crossing the threshold. His paws land firmly on the stone floor inside the tunnel. No hesitation, no resistance. The change is immediate. The tension that held him back is gone, replaced by something quieter, something resolved. Daniel glances back at him, just for a second. Their eyes meet again. No command, no signal, just understanding. Then Daniel turns forward again. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out the 2 dog tags. The metal catches. The light briefly, dull but present. He kneels slowly, the movement controlled, deliberate, not rushed, not forced. He places the tags gently on the ground, right at the edge of where the light fades into darkness. Not throwing them, not dropping them, setting them down like something returned, not lost. His hand lingers there for a second longer than necessary. Then he pulls it back. The silence that follows is different now. Not empty, not heavy, just still. The kind of stillness that does not press, but holds. The faint sound that had followed him, the shifting, the breath-like presence, it fades. Not abruptly, gradually, like something that no longer needs to call out. Daniel stands slowly, his shoulders lower just slightly, the tension easing not because the past has changed, but because it has finally been faced without turning away. Behind him, Shadow moves closer, stopping just beside him now, no longer watching the darkness with tension, but simply present within it. Daniel takes one step back, then another. The distance between him and the spot where the tags rest increases, but the weight of them does not follow. It stays there, where it belongs. He turns slightly toward the entrance, the faint outline of light now visible again, steady, unchanged. He begins to walk toward it, each step measured, grounded, no longer pulled backward by hesitation. Shadow walks with him, shoulder aligned with his leg, quiet, steady. They do not rush. They do not look back immediately. Halfway to the entrance, Daniel pauses. Just for a moment. He turns his head slightly, not fully, just enough to glance back over his shoulder. The darkness remains. Still, silent, but not empty. Something remains there. Not waiting, not calling, just present in a way that no longer demands anything from him. And yet, one question lingers, quiet and unresolved, threading itself through the calm that follows. Because even as the tunnel releases its hold, even as the weight begins to lift, one truth does not settle as easily as the rest. If what was left behind has now been found, then why does it still feel like something here chose to stay? Daniel steps out into the open air without realizing the exact moment his body crosses from shadow into light. Because the change is not immediate, not dramatic, it comes slowly, like something loosening its grip one breath at a time, the cool night air brushing against his face, carrying the faint scent of dry earth and distant pine, grounding him in a world that moves forward, a world that does not hold onto the past the way that tunnel did. And yet something inside him does not move as easily. Something stays quiet, settled, but not gone. Shadow steps out beside him, his pace matching Daniel's without command, without hesitation. The tension that once held his frame tight now replaced with a calm that feels earned, not given. Daniel exhales deeply, the kind of breath that does not just fill the lungs, but releases something that has been held too long. He does not speak, not at first, because there are no words that feel necessary. Not here, not now. The silence between him and the dog is enough. It always was. They walk a few yards away from the tunnel entrance, the dark opening now behind them. No longer pulling, no longer demanding, just existing as part of the landscape again. Daniel slows, then stops, his gaze drifting forward, but not focusing on anything in particular. His mind not racing, not searching, just still. And that stillness feels unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, because for so long, there was always something beneath it, something unfinished, something unspoken. He glances down at Shadow. The dog looks back briefly, then away, scanning the quiet horizon, alert but not tense, present but not burdened, and Daniel feels it then, not as a thought, but as a realization that settles gently. The weight he carried was never just about what happened in that tunnel. It was about what he chose to forget, what he allowed himself to accept as complete, when it never was. And for the first time, he understands something simple, something quiet. Shadow never forgot, not because he could not, but because he would not. Because for him, loyalty did not end when the mission did. It did not bend to reports or closure or the comfort of moving on. It stayed. It waited. It brought Daniel back when he was finally ready to face it. Daniel lowers himself slowly onto a flat rock nearby, resting his forearms on his knees, his posture no longer rigid, no longer guarded, just present. He looks out into the distance, the horizon stretching wide and open, nothing hidden, nothing buried, just space. And yet, even in that openness, his mind drifts back, not to the fear, not to the confusion, but to the moment of choice. The moment he turned away, and for the first time, he does not try to rewrite it. He question remains, soft but persistent, not demanding an answer, but refusing to disappear. If some things wait to be found, then what happens to the ones that are never answered at all? And Daniel does not try to resolve it. He does not push it away. He lets it stay, just like the tunnel, just like the memory, just like the truth. Not everything needs to be closed to be understood. Not everything needs to be explained to be carried forward. And as the night deepens around them, Daniel sits there a little longer, not searching, not running, just being, with a dog who never left, and a silence that finally feels like something close to grace. In this deeply emotional cinematic journey, a former U.S. Marine returns to a forgotten tunnel guided by his loyal K9, uncovering a buried truth that was never meant to resurface. This powerful entry among unforgettable animal stories explores loyalty beyond command, where a trained German shepherd refuses to move forward not out of fear, but out of memory, forcing the Marine to confront a past decision he chose to leave behind. As the darkness reveals hidden dog tags, carved messages, and a presence that never left, the story unfolds as one of the most haunting animal stories about trust, instinct, and the quiet bond between a soldier and his dog. Through tension, silence, and emotional revelation, this narrative stands out among animal stories by showing how a K9 can carry the truth when humans cannot, leading the Marine back to a moment where duty conflicted with humanity. As the tunnel becomes more than a place and transforms into a living memory, the Marine must face the consequences of what was buried, making this one of those rare animal stories where the real battle is internal, not physical. In the end, with no clear closure and only a lingering sense of grace and unanswered questions, this story remains among the most thought-provoking animal stories, reminding us that sometimes loyalty does not move on. It waits until we are ready to return.